White Snake, a simple story for English learners. A1A2 Long, long ago, there lived a good and noble king. He was a great ruler, kind to his people, and loved by everyone in the kingdom. The king always knew what happened in his land, even things that no one told him. People believed he had a special magic, but no one knew his secret. Every night after dinner, the king ate a special dish alone. Only one trusted servant brought this dish to him. The servant did not know what the food was, and he was never allowed to ask. One night, the servant became very curious. He thought, why does the king eat this dish alone every night? When the king left the room, the servant slowly lifted the cover of the dish. Inside, he saw a white snake. The snake was dead and cooked. The servant was shocked, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. He picked up a small piece and ate it. At that moment, his life changed forever. Soon after, the servant heard strange sounds outside the window. He listened carefully and was surprised. He could understand the voices. Birds were talking. They spoke about the queen's lost ring. The ring had fallen into a duck pond. A duck found the ring inside a fish and brought it back to the queen. The servant realized the truth. By eating the white snake, he now had the power to understand animals. The next day, the king asked the servant what reward he wanted for his loyal service. The servant bowed and said, "Your Majesty, I do not want gold or land. I only want a horse and some traveling money. I wish to see the world." The king agreed. The servant left the palace and began his journey happy and free. As he rode along the road, he heard soft voices near the grass. He saw 3 small fish trapped among weeds. They cried, "Oh, what bad luck! We will die here." The servant felt sorry for them. He picked them up gently and put them back into the water. The fish said, "We will remember your kindness and repay you one day." The servant smiled and continued his journey. A little later, he heard angry voices near an anthill. The ants were shouting, "Why do people and their heavy animals walk over our homes? That horse is killing our people." The servant stopped his horse and carefully moved away from the anthill. The ants said, "Thank you. One good turn deserves another." Again, the servant rode on. Soon he entered a deep forest. There, he saw 3 young ravens crying loudly. Their parents had thrown them away. The baby ravens could not fly and had no food. They cried, "Help us! We will starve." The servant felt great sadness. He looked at his horse and knew what he must do. With a heavy heart, he killed his horse and gave the meat to the young ravens. The ravens ate and survived. They looked at the servant and remembered his sacrifice. After many days, the servant reached a large city. A rider stood in the street and made an announcement. He said the king's daughter would marry only the man who could complete hard tasks. Anyone who failed would lose his life. When the servant saw the princess in the palace garden, he fell in love at once. He went to the king and asked to marry her. The king agreed, but said the servant must pass the tests. First, the servant was taken to the middle of the sea in a small boat. The king threw his ring into the water and said, "Bring it back, or you will die." The servant stood helplessly and looked into the water. Suddenly, the 3 fish appeared. They placed a shell at his feet. Inside was the ring. The servant thanked them and returned it to the king. The princess was angry and asked for another test. She took him to the garden and spread 10 sacks of millet seeds on the ground. She said, "By morning, every seed must be picked up." The servant felt hopeless. He sat down and closed his eyes. When he woke up, he saw 10 full sacks. Thousands of ants had helped him. Still, the princess asked for one last task. She said, "Bring me a golden apple from the tree of life." The servant traveled far and became very tired. One day he fell asleep under a tree. When he woke up, he saw 3 ravens on his knees and a golden apple on his chest. They said, "We are the ravens you saved." The servant took the apple back to the princess. At last, her heart softened. She cut the apple in 2, and they ate it together. They married and lived happily ever after.